And away we go. It's a live nightcap, Thursday night edition, right here on BearcatJournal.com, www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Get the app. They will deliver right to your front door, pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop, or you can go yourself down to Dayton, Kentucky. Tell them to pump it up, save yourself 15%. Great tailgate food. Get yourself a tray of chicken tendies. They will get you taken care of for game day. They are open Wednesday through Sunday. Lunch and dinner, tell them to pump it up. Save yourself 15% off of your order. All right, let's get to it. Hi, everybody. Oh, Aaron's busy.
Hello.
Garrett's here.
I am.
It is our Thursday night. We did find somebody to fill the Thursday nights that you aren't on, Garrett.
Who's that?
It's a friend of yours.
Does it rhyme with fish? Is it a type of fish? Oh,
no. I went defense.
Defense.
I went with the man that has started more games in red and black than anybody in program history.
Who'd that be?
Zach Edwards.
Swaggy. Okay, I did guess that last week.
You did. I hit up Zach and asked him if he would be interested in joining us on the Thursday nights that you aren't here, and he was excited to do so. So
good. I'm happy to hear he's a great football mind. I love him.
So that'll be. I'm looking forward to that. We'll have him on for the first time next week.
Okay.
As we get ready for BYU, but tonight we get ready for the Oklahoma Sooners. I guess first, since you haven't had a spot on these airwaves since Saturday, your reaction to the streak-ending Miami getting their first win in the series since Ben Roethlisberger was in college.
Reaction? If you saw me at the game, you'd know my reaction. I've had time to kind of simmer down through the week. It's unfortunate, but dwelling on the past isn't going to change anything in my mind. I think that's one of the big keys, in which it kind of relays into my keys to success as well. But obviously, it's disappointing to a lot of us. But in the same light, we have to remember we haven't lost this bell in a really long time, and sometimes those games will happen. And we had the opportunity to do it. We had plenty of opportunities to do it, and we just didn't capitalize on it. And I don't think we were beat as much as we beat ourselves.
Yeah, you know the deal. You can't get to the red zone 8 times.
No.
Only score 2 touchdowns and think that you're not gonna win with the win.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
And it's the age old, like, you let an inferior opponent just kind of hang around.
Yeah.
Hang around and hang around and hang around.
And it's just, like routine, like field goal. Like, it's
yeah.
It's coming. It's the play of the game.
And they're coming after it. Like,
I spent 5 years. I've spent 5 years at interior field goal. I spent years on game-winning kicks, and I'll stick with me forever, like ECU or the UConn. I know they're coming. I know what I have to do. You need to just sacrifice your body, and as the famed Coach Crookwood once said, is die slowly, and that's pretty much your job at that point. So, but this, like I said, no dwelling on the past. It's moving forward at this point, correcting
what we see. That guy on the outside, you got to get a hand on him, right?
I've been in many special teams meetings where that has been emphasized beyond all doubt. Is get some kind of wing on it, even if you're touching air, even if you're making them widen out by an inch. Everybody's got a job to do, and these are the kind of things that they say it's literally a game of inches, and that's sticking your arm out there, pushing them off track by an inch or two can make all the difference in the world in a game like that.
You don't let him sprint and just Superman straight to the kicker.
No, you're not gonna. Yeah, it's not gonna work out very well for you.
Right. All right, let's get to Oklahoma. Aaron, you want to just straight to 3 keys here?
I mean, you and Dave broke down so much. And then you also had Colin breaking it down as well. It was like an hour and a half of just straight up diagnosing the shit out of Oklahoma. So I don't know that I can add any more to what you and Dave gave last night.
That might be, if you haven't watched last night's BCJ pod yet, that might be as thorough a breakdown of an opponent as we've ever had on this network. And we've been doing this for a long time, like 8 seasons we've been doing this show. And last night, hour and a half on not only Oklahoma and their personnel, but Cincinnati and what they need to do to make this a game. Chop, what's up, brother? My guy, poor Chop. Love him. All right. So we'll start with our guest.
Okay.
Garrett, do you want to start or do you not want to start?
I love starting. This is perfect. And if I say anything that's related to last night, I apologize beforehand. I wasn't able to catch it. So
you're fine.
You're probably going to hear a lot of similarities that I think we think alike. But the big one for me and what I witnessed a lot is giving up big penalties in crucial moments last week. There were a lot of times where I think we could have come off the field and we didn't get it done. And that's demoralizing every time it happens. It's kind of like a little dagger for, the other side of the ball. Cause you're expecting to get back out there, but you're sitting there and you get cold and, these drives just sustain themselves. You see the time taking off and you see the opportunities being taken away. So that was one of the big things for me, getting rid of, those critical penalties. The second one, and it's kind of the topic of the week, is making sure to score in the red zone, making sure to score in general, because we know Oklahoma's kind of MO this year, and it's putting up a lot of points on a lot of people. And if you're going to want to stay in one of these games, you're going to have to score a lot of points and reciprocate that. So I think that's one of the big things that on both sides of the ball, it's restricting that and it's putting up a lot of points. And then the third one for me, and this is one that, I had really great seasons there and I had really bad seasons there. And I know what a game like last week can do to a season. For me, it's playing with a snap and clear mentality. It's not allowing the burdens of, last week and kind of the expectations of this week's game to kind of get in your head and put you in a losing mindset before the first snap of the game. It's important to know that you're getting into league play here, into conference play, and there's still hope. There's still a lot to be won, and there's still a lot to prove. And I think that if they can kind of stick with that and view it kind of as a new season, new start, I think they're going to be better off.
All right. Is that all three?
That's three, right?
Yes.
Penalties, scoring, snap and clear mentality.
I was looking up a stat for mine, so I missed the number.
It's like you don't even care about what I have to say. Unbelievable.
I had
You're not even listening.
I had a point to make, and I wanted to make sure I was ready for my point.
You proved to me. Just repeat back to what I said, sentence for sentence, and we'll be okay.
I wasn't paying attention to what you said.
Right.
No, the penalties, and don't let the loss create a bad season.
You're 0-0 going into conference play.
Exactly.
All right. You want to go, Aaron, or you want me?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Because Garrett and I had two similar points.
I feel like I need a hat. I feel like I'm being left out here. I need you guys getting me a cap here.
I mean, we could send you a hat.
I got one for you.
We could send you a hat, and you probably wouldn't wear it the same way that you didn't use the template that I sent you. So who knows?
Whoa.
We try and let you fit in, and you decide you don't want to fit in. So
we'll chat back for you.
Oh yeah, we'll get together. We'll get together. I like that.
All right, here we go. Key to victory number 1: punch Oklahoma in the mouth first, and then hold on for dear life. I think that this game has the propensity to be a shootout. And I am terrified if it ends up being a shootout. But I think that if Cincinnati can set the tone and put Oklahoma in a position that they really haven't been in, to where they are having to play catch up, I think that can make Oklahoma actually more uncomfortable than even just pressuring Dylan Gabriel, which hasn't really worked yet this season. which brings me to my second point. You can't just pressure Dylan Gabriel. You have to find quarterback hits, and you have to come up with sacks. It's not enough just to pressure the quarterback. They were pressuring Miami just fine, but then he would get out of the pressures and ended up scrambling for entirely too many yards. George and I looked it up. He had 75 yards last week, Gabbert did, and he had never rushed for 150 was his high. And outside of that, he never rushed for 75 yards in a season. 150 was his season high in his 5 years at Miami. So, you can't.
It's an offensive lineman that's got to drive you nuts watching a guy run out the front door like that as often as he did, right, Garrett?
Oh, yeah.
Straight out the front door.
Third and longs, that is just that's up there with the penalties. That might even be worse than the penalties. And it's for that to happen over and over. It's the repetitiveness.
Right.
What is it? Insanity. It's this doing the same thing twice and expecting a different result. You'd think that an adjustment needed to be made to contain that, but I don't know. I'm not in the booth.
And my third, you have to eliminate the silly penalties. They had penalties where they had too many men on the field. They had this wasn't a penalty, but they had a punt where they only had 10 men on the field. They had the illegal man downfield, which I understand that it was a silly penalty when you're at the 2-yard line, and how far down the field could he even have been? But at the end of the day, there potentially could be pass interference calls again, as it's become a thing that has happened in 2 games in a row now. And the coaching for Oklahoma is going to be in the referee's ears to look for it the entire game, as it's been something that's come up. So that may continue to be a thing. And honestly, if it saves a 79-yard touchdown again, I'm okay with a 10-yard or 15-yard pass interference call. But yeah, those would be.
It's hard to get a pass interference when he's 3 yards clear of you sprinting towards the end zone.
I'm just saying, if he had gotten pass interference on that particular play instead of allowing that to go,
I'm just saying he ran right. I'm saying he ran right by him.
I know.
That's all. I think your point is excellent. I agree. It's just hard to pass interfere when you can't get a finger on him. That makes it a little more difficult. All right, let's get to mine here. And first off, slow the train. And this is what I was looking up here. The 2 games that they have dominated, Arkansas State, where they made Butch Jones cry, and last week against Tulsa, it was 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. Against SMU, that was a 14-11 game into the fourth quarter, because SMU did not let that train get rolling down the track early and often. So this is an Oklahoma team. We do not know how good they are yet. We know they blew out Arkansas State and Tulsa. That doesn't say a ton. We know that they were in a 14-11 game at home against SMU. And that tells me it can be done in Nippert Stadium, 40,000 people going nuts. Like, it can be done, but you have to be good early. What can't happen is Oklahoma wins the toss, or, Oklahoma gets the ball first. They score a touchdown. Cincinnati goes 3 and out. Oklahoma comes back and scores a touchdown. And it's 14-0 before everybody's in their seat. You can't have that with this Oklahoma team, because they are going to feed off that momentum, and they are going to keep attacking, and you're going to be in big trouble because they do not run the ball well. They are not going to look to sit on it and grind you out. They're going to look to do what they've done the last 2 of the last 3 games, and that's put up 60, 70 points. They are not afraid to do so. Number 2, pound the rock. Now, this is going to be difficult because Oklahoma has coming in, they have one of the best run defenses in the country. Again, We don't know what that means yet because it's not like they've played anybody that, is a prolific rushing attack. But you have got to be able against them to run the ball effectively and allow your defense to get some rest over there because they are going to go fast. They're going to try to run 100 plays. And the way you prevent that is you grind them up a little bit in between the 20s and you move the chains via first down. And you get into Garrett's favorite thing, 3rd and 4, right?
Oh, I love it.
You don't want 3rd and 8.
No,
you
absolutely
got to
not.
get the 3rd and 4. So pound the rock, and that'll not only give Cincinnati's offense momentum, it'll give the defense a time to rest. And don't break. Bend, but don't break. Remember 2019, Garrett? When you guys beat Dylan Gabriel? I know you weren't on the team that year, right?
I was going to say, no, 19 I was off, but yeah, I remember. And you know who did a great job of that? Miami did a great job of that last week.
Miami played Cincinnati almost has the talent disparity isn't as wide, but you cannot let Oklahoma go down and be 5 for 6 in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, how many times were we, first and goal last week? And
they were in 17 plays from the 10 and in, Garrett.
Hey,
plays.
That's the definition of bend don't break right there, and that's unbelievable. Especially it's disheartening, man. Especially after the great run game we've had for the past couple seasons or the past couple games. I'd like to see more try to run it up I mean, like you said, there's an athletic difference there. I'd like to try to put big on big in there. But that's just me. That's just the offensive line and me talking. But we're not harping on last week. We're not going to do that.
No. The other thing is, you just can't let them bomb away down the sidelines.
No.
You cannot just let them go over top of your head over and over and over again because they will. Look, that shit is on wax. It is on tape that Cincinnati is susceptible to the deep ball down the sidelines. And if you don't think Oklahoma is going to try to take advantage of that, you're crazy. Now, here's the biggest difference in that. Dylan Gabriel isn't going to chuck it and pray. He is as accurate as any quarterback in college football. He's going to throw lasers down that sideline to guys he's hoping are potentially running a step clear of the defense. And those plays, as we saw last week, can go for 79-yard touchdowns. You cannot get air rated. You got to be in the bomb shelter on Saturday. I'm doing my best when I do this, Garrett. I'm trying to be like the TV analyst guy that gives the cheesy one-liners. That's the angle.
I like it. Flow the train, get in the bomb shelter. I'm picking it up on it. See, unlike you, I'm listening. I'm here for it. I'm here. I got it all. I'm not looking up stats.
I heard most of what you said, but that 28-0 at the end of the first quarter in the first and third game, and they went on to score 120 something points combined in those two games.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody got anything else that they want to get in as we're talking about Oklahoma? If you guys have questions in the chat, feel free to drop them, and we will get to them as allowed. I know Aaron had a couple other things. That's what we do when Aaron takes over as host, Care Bear.
First, I want to say hi to Steve Johnson, who's been with us all week. He has come into several shows saying he is an Oklahoma fan, and so just wanted to say thanks for coming in and listening to our takes all week long. So we do appreciate that. Outside of that, there were some things that because we have a format now that the season's underway and we can actually do things in some type of organization.
Formatted, organized fashion.
We try to keep the listeners' time under consideration, and we want to appear like we have our shit together. So that said, there were a couple of things that came out this week, stories that I wanted to address. Ohio State's AD, Gene Smith, thinks that he's figured out how to solve the NIL as Congress is trying to also decide how to solve the NIL. He says that, first off, he seems to be, or at least is wording it, that he's embarrassed that the NCAA has had to even ask the federal government for help. That's because the NCAA didn't get out ahead of this the 14 times that they had the opportunity to get out ahead of this. But they dug their heels in, and they are suffering the consequences. That said, the big thing that he said here is some people believe the money to athletes should flow through the institution. I'm not one of them unless we settle on a new scholarship model. We give room, board, tuition, cost of attendance, and money. What you do is add to the scholarship model an amount of dollars for NIL money. By the way, this article does come courtesy of Ross Dellinger of Yahoo. He also said that.
First off, here's the problem, Gene Smith. That would never hold up in a court of law. Ever. Even if it went through Congress, it would go to court, it would be challenged, and they would lose because you cannot cap someone's value.
Yeah.
Like, it's name, image, and likeness. It's not making them an employee. You can't.
So
say
he does address
work the same.
He does address that, saying that he thinks that a student board of directors would design such endeavors, and then athletes would be permitted to strike other NIL deals with brands, other entities, and possibly collectives. Which, what's the fucking difference?
Right. So it's just the
I
same
don't
thing.
know. Yeah, it doesn't change anything.
In my opinion, what that would do is that opens up the university to essentially being employers of these student athletes if they're giving them money.
Right, you're paying them a salary. That makes them an employee.
And then you have to worry about the fact that they are now state employees in Ohio State's instance, unless it's a private institution. If it's a state-funded institution, now they are employees of the state, which would open them up to things like benefits of being a state employee. And I don't know if you actually want to go down that rabbit hole, Gene Smith.
Well, it would also mean they would have to pay taxes because the money would be coming from the institution. And then you get into antitrust status. Like, there's so many things, reasons why, like, I think it's going to happen eventually, and there's going to be collective bargaining, and there's going to be a union. Yes. Like, it is going to be professional sports at some point in time.
Oh, yeah, it's moving it that way.
But I just like saying that everybody gets that. Like, this is what Luke Fickle wanted. Like, this is until he realized that model wasn't going to work and left. Like, this is what he had sold to everybody, that the way we do things here is we pay everybody the same. And then if somebody like Dez or Sauce are able to go out and get their dollars, then that's fine. Well, then, he took a hardline stance on that in recruiting, and Kentucky came in over the top. Like, okay, well, they're going to give you 20, and we'll give you 100. Like, we're gonna put an extra zero on that bad boy, and all of a sudden, you're losing kids to Illinois and Kentucky, and the head coach is going, "Oh, what I thought would be the perfect world is not how."
Same rules, the same sandbox. Yeah.
Right. Like, just because you want to do it that way doesn't mean everybody is like, "Oh, Luke's right." No. So, yeah. I mean, I go ahead. There's more.
The way the NIL was just rolled out in general, I mean, there was just no pattern, no thought process to it. It was kind of like, okay, free, like, just do what you will. And I feel like just chaos ensued, and people are now reeling. And like Steve said, the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, that's a perfect analogy.
I don't think that's the perfect analogy, because the genie eventually goes back in the bottle when you're out of wishes.
No, this is like Jafar when he gets to be turned into a genie, and then he's just evil, and he doesn't grant wishes, and he's out forever until they seal him.
Steve, I think the better analogy for what has happened here is the toothpaste is out of the tube. Because
you can get it back in there. Oh, you can get it back.
No, you can't.
Oh, trust me.
No, you can scrape the toothpaste off of the counter,
In any case,
you can't get
so-
the toothpaste back in the tube.
Gene Smith's idea essentially, in theory, would bring a close to how schools could be involved with NIL. So there is that point, as some states allow schools to be involved with NIL, some states do not. And that's created some chaos and some
Right.
fairness issues in the eyes of some schools, as Ohio is not a state that is allowed to be involved in their NIL. Before you make your point, let me make one more point here, Chad. And then the NCAA NIL working group is in its 4th year of existence. They have been re-exploring more permanent concepts to implement around the NIL, including Smith's idea of tightening the relationship between school and NIL.
I just had a joke and you ruined it. It's fine.
Well, I didn't know if you were going to make one of your tirades, and then I had
No.
then I would be going back to something like, well, here's this. And
I was going to say, shockingly, the places where they're catering to the schools and to NIL all just happen to be in the South and members of the SEC, where every government is like, look, the state of Georgia, it's like, we're not letting Bama do that, and then South Carolina, it's like, hold my beer, like that. It's an arms race in the South as to who can give their state university more collateral in the NIL wars.
Mm.
And states, the Big Ten states are all like, that's dumb as shit. We're not doing, like, we have other things to do.
yeah, there's not a ton else.
Means more in the South.
There's not a ton else in that article. There's more words, but did I miss something? Okay, what did you catch?
It was something that he said is happening now, which I think is fascinating. You'll love this, Garrett. Apparently, high-level recruits are asking for $5,000 in NIL money to go on unofficial visits. If you want me to come visit your school,
To even visit.
That was something that he said that was not in this article. Actually, that was something completely
he said,
separate yesterday.
Said, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We are being asked to pay recruits $5,000 to come for unofficial visits.
See, for me, as a walk-on unrecruited guy, I had to beg to go on an unofficial visit. I would pay them at that point to get out to do some of these campuses. So, that's just unworldly for me to hear. I mean, that, and you're talking about 17, 18-year-old kids making these decisions. I mean, making these demands. I don't know.
It's their parents or their handlers or whatever. The kids are usually so far out of touch on all this, like they don't have much to do with it.
No.
The thing from the question from Connor here.
He had 2 questions actually.
Would any of this affect that Cincy?
Oh, no, sorry.
Just announced that Cincy Reigns is now the official NIL of the university. So what was announced today? And I did want to get to this before we got out of here tonight. What Cincy Reigns did is they partnered with Learfield. And Learfield is like the marketing arm of the university. So what that means now is Cincy Reigns is allowed to use the CPAL. They're allowed to use the logo. They're allowed to use the markings on their endeavors. So technically now, if they wanted to, they could redesign Cincy Light with a CPAL as the C. Yeah. So
put that down. They'll have to pay you for that. Good idea.
Yeah.
It was heard here first. Let this stand up in court.
I'm sure nobody else thought.
Yeah, nobody's ever thought of
the
it.
C in Cincy Light of CPAL.
But
so that's what that was about more today. They were already the official NIL collective of the university, but enabled to use the branding and able to use the marks, then you had to have a deal with Learfield because Learfield controls that side of the university. So now that they have that, now you could definitely see a Cincy Light, like if they did a Cincy Reigns bourbon, you could see the CPAL on it. I don't know how much President Pinto would love that idea, but
It's
it
an
just
NIL
gives
world,
Cincy
man.
Reigns. It gives Cincy Reigns a lot more freedom when they are like, because I imagine for them, this is just me. This isn't like insider information. This is me talking. I imagine for them, it's a little bit more difficult to get people on board partnering with them if they're not able to use the markings. But now that you're able to use the markings, you're making it very clear the product that you're partnering with is supporting UC. And I think that'll be attractive to businesses that are looking to partner with Cincy Reigns, that they can now, the logo can now be a part of that. So that's more what that is about, Connor.
And then his
question if you want.
His other question was, will any of your crew be at Big Noon Kickoff? And is Big Noon Kickoff as big as College Game Day versus Tulsa a few years ago? I'm aiming to try and be there. So
I will probably just be at the Simone tailgate. I might try to walk by, check it out before I head into the stadium, like while the show is going on.
Well, they're moving into the stadium at 11.
At 11. Yeah, we're always in before that, though.
Yeah.
I'm probably the same. I'll stop by if I can before entering.
Yeah, I mean, it's so packed and chaotic. I would guess Reagan is going to be there doing man on the street, woman on the street content, probably forcing Keegan to be there working with her, because, she tells him what to do.
That's how it is.
She was bossing him around last week, wasn't she, Aaron?
She was.
Good for her.
Yeah. Oh, and she doesn't mess around. Like, let's go. We got shit to do. Let's go. That's why I love Reagan. She doesn't mess around.
She's a spunky little thing.
I'll try to stop by. Brent is going to want a piece of that action in some way.
I assume as much as well. But I think we'd be doing a disservice to not have, for the BBP, one of us or two of us not having gone to at least discuss what happened and how it was. So that way, when there are future Big 12 or Big Noon kickoffs here, should that be a thing that happens down the road, then we at least know what to expect and can speak on it for future.
Yeah. I'm excited. It's going to be as big as College Game Day. Look, man.
I don't think anything's as big as College Game Day, truthfully.
Well, and it was also in the middle of an undefeated run to the college football playoff. There was star power. There, like, the entire city was galvanized by that team. If last Saturday didn't happen, it would have been pretty wild. Saturday, I still think it's going to be very good, but the circumstances, if it would have happened with a 3-0 team, first Big 12 game, Oklahoma, like, it would have been a massive deal. Now it's going to be just a massive deal, not a massive deal. You gonna be there, Garrett?
Of course. Come on now. I wouldn't miss it for anything.
The other story that I wanted to cover here.
Big Noon kickoff. You're going to go to the Big Noon kickoff set on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll be there. Okay. Yeah, I'll be around there.
You would be at the.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. We're lucky to have it. Might as well show up, show out, and that way, bring more people. Next year, our show, the Big 12, that good fan base, excited about things like this, excited about opportunities like this, so they'll come more often in the future. So. I think it's good to show up.
The other story I wanted to...
That was incredible game day. I mean, that was just off the charts.
It was amazing. I'm glad that I made that a priority that day.
I wasn't allowed to play that day.
Yeah, you had some other things going on. But you got to watch the production and see it from a different
I was home. I got to watch it all.
A different lens than any of us that were there, so...
I wasn't allowed to be around 3 people, much less 100,000 people.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been good for your situation that you had going on.
No. But it was pretty cool to take it in from home.
Should have just
and see.
FaceTime me. I would have put you above the whole crowd. You would have been king.
Let's see if we can. The challenge is we got Isaiah Collier signs on game day. Let's see if we can get Jace Richards and Tyler Betsy signs on Big Noon Kickoff.
Richardson.
I know.
All right. So
What else
Ross Dellinger hooked it up again with another good article. Promotion/relegation in college football. Game-changing idea could help save the Pac-12. Pac-12 currently stands as the Pac-2, and they have been in talks with the Mountain West as to how to figure this out. I imagine that Washington State and Oregon State don't necessarily want to lose the rights to the Pac-12 name. So they're doing really whatever they can to try and keep that afloat. So there's been an idea that's been kicked around that originated in English soccer, and essentially you would have right now there's 14 teams between the Mountain West and the Pac-2, and so you'd have to bring in 2 more teams to get everything to 16, so you'd have 8 and 8. And you would have.
I really think you probably need to get to 20, Aaron. I think it would need to be 10 and 10.
I'm just going
thinking out. Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud.
I'm going off of what this article is talking about. But they said that you would have at that point with 8 and 8, your scheduling would be 7 intra-conference games, 3 crossover games, and 2 non-conference opponents. You would have a week 1 rematch of the previous year's Pac-12 championship game, a week 1 game between 2 teams promoted from the Mountain West to the Pac-12 and 2 teams relegated from the Pac-12 to the Mountain West, a bracket buster weekend in early to mid-November where pairings are determined 2 weeks prior and based off of current standings with the intent of arranging compelling crossover matchups, and a relegation game between the 6th and 7th place teams in the Pac-12. The loser is relegated to the Mountain West. The 8th place finisher in the regular season is automatically relegated. A promotion game between the 2nd and 3rd place teams in the Mountain West. The winner is promoted to the Pac-12. The regular season champion of the Mountain West is automatically promoted to the Pac-12. And the Pac-12 championship game where the winner has a significant chance to advance to the newly expanded college football playoff. You would get 3 points for any win in your regular season, 1 point for an overtime loss, and 0 for any other loss. I think it's fascinating. I don't know. One thing that they are concerned about is that some of the bigger conferences like the Big Ten or the SEC, or potentially, I guess, even the Big 12, if they get to 20, that you would run into the bigger conferences stealing this idea before they can even get it off the ground, in which case it doesn't become quite so different and fascinating for people, and captivating, I guess, is the word I'm looking for.
So I would disagree with that completely, because there's no way anybody in the Big Ten or SEC is going to agree to be the lesser league.
Yeah.
Like there's no way.
I disagree.
I don't see that as feasible. The teams are all joining that league to be part of that league, not be relegated. Like, why would Vandy ever go for that? They would never be in the big boy league. Like, they would always be in the bottom league.
If you can financially incentivize the people in the top league as opposed to the bottom league enough to where those fringe teams that may or may not be in the top league could be making some better money than what they would be otherwise, maybe you can get the votes.
Maybe. I mean, a lot of that stuff requires 3 quarters.
Right. And that's where it would get difficult.
Yeah. I mean,
with those leagues in particular.
If you've got 20 teams and you need 15 of them to approve that, oh, buddy. Or if you got 16 teams, you need 12 of them to approve it. Here's my only problem with college using the relegation system. especially in a situation like involving the Mountain West, who does not have the built-in recruiting advantages that the other leagues do. There's so much of teams like having that 1 year, right? Like where they jump up and they have the senior laden team that's been together for a while, and they've got the quarterback, and they jump up and they get promoted. And then the team the next year stinks because all those guys either, and especially now, Aaron, all those
With the
guys
transfer
either
portal.
graduate or they get gobbled up in the transfer portal
Yeah.
because that team had a great year, won the Mountain West, and got promoted to the Pac-12. And the team that they put on the field in the Pac-12 the next year has 16 new starters. It looks nothing like the team that got promoted.
But how fun would it be watching at the end of the season when you're seeing this 7 versus 8 and the loser has to go
it'd be great.
to a whole different league at the end of the year or next
I
season?
love the idea of promotion relegation in American sports. I just don't. I have concerns on how it would fit with the college model. Now, what it would fit with, Aaron, is those games would get ratings.
Huge ratings, and I think that would be something
huge, but they would get ratings
bigger than what the Pac-2 and Mountain West would be getting otherwise.
Yeah, I just it's interesting. I don't players would stay on a promoted team, Brian. What if that team is UNLV and Alabama comes calling with $250,000 NIL money for their best player, or USC is like, oh, that guy can start for us. Yeah, it sounds great in theory that person would stay with San Jose State, let's say. But guess what? San Jose State is never going to have the money to compete, NIL money to compete with USC, if USC back channels communication to this kid that's from LA and playing at San Jose State and looks like, he's 1 year away from being an NFL draft prospect. Now he's playing at USC, and San Jose State doesn't have their best player that potentially helped them get promoted up into the Pac-12. Like, we're just in a different age of college sports. Like, I wish this was college sports like how it was created 100 years ago with promotion and relegation. Like, that would have made for a fascinating model, a couple decades down the road to see how it would evolve. I just think it's really tough. It's tough as something to implement so far into the business model, right? Like we've already established what college sports is. It would be different. It would be fun. I don't know how long it would be feasible, I guess is the best way to put it. Garrett, your thoughts?
I agree. I think the NIL shakes things up a lot too. And you talk about the detriment to recruiting it takes. If you're one of those lower tier SEC teams, I mean, you're not being thought of as an SEC team anymore. They're not going to get those,
right,
4 and 5 stars that they might pick up now and then. Those guys aren't going to want to go there. And you talk about even a bigger disparity between those top teams and those lower teams. That's going to you talk about those teams that maybe 1 or 2 years. Like you're talking like senior laden teams that get better over time and they have a few high star recruits. Those guys aren't want to go there anymore. Those guys are going to have no chance. They're going to get buried down there and not going to have a chance to kind of make their way out. And it kind of ruins the idea of, hey, I made it to the SEC. It's like, well, USCCA or USCCB?
Right. Well, let's not pretend Vanderbilt has ever risen up.
I understand.
Or
like those fringe teams.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Josh, here's the problem with your point. Josh said it would be interesting to make relegation a penalty for NCAA violations. What NCAA violations? Nothing's illegal anymore. Like it's all legal now. Mm-hmm. There's no NCAA violations.
Unless you want to transfer a second time, because that's the only thing you're not allowed to do.
Right.
They'll find a loophole eventually. It will become legal here. Just give it a year or two.
Yeah, that's the problem.
It was legal though for a year or two.
Right. Until and then the coaches and the schools said they wanted it illegal, and then now they're mad that it's not allowed. But NIL is already creating parity, Steve says. In some cases, yeah, it is. The schools that have learned how to be good at it definitely are having an advantage. We've talked about this in basketball a lot. Like I said this, and I have talked to high major, top of the sport, head coaches and assistant coaches, and they agree with this point that I've made. In recruiting now in college basketball, I would almost rather be competing against Duke, Kentucky, and North Carolina than I would rather be competing against Alabama, Kansas, Ole Miss, Auburn, Texas. Yeah, but they're not. Garrett, from what I've heard, I'll throw a number at you for college basketball. For Kansas, their starting point for NIL for their basketball team.
I thought you were talking football. Okay,
No,
that makes more sense.
I'm making a basketball comparison.
Gotcha.
I have been told Kansas in basketball, the starting point for their roster in NIL is $8 million.
That's bananas.
13 players, $8 million to spend on those 13 players. And that's the starting point. Like with Hunter Dickinson, that transferred from Michigan, they went out and got a little more. And if you believe the rumors, Hunter Dickinson got a $2 million NIL contract to sign with Kansas for 1 year. 1 year, $2 million. So yeah, like the cheating is above board, Steve. That's where you're right. It's now, it's not just a couple SEC schools and like a couple coaches that just don't care. Like we're gonna get shit done and do what we got to do. Now everybody can do it. So the teams that figure out their collective and their resources, and now you're seeing all these beers coming online, and that's going to expand, and you're going to see. I think you're going to see larger corporations start to get involved with this. We've seen Caleb Williams has his own fast food deal, right? Doesn't he? I think I've seen him with like a burger or something, like one of the fast food chains that's claiming. Oh, it's Wendy's with they've got this.
Yes, it is.
The nacho cheeseburger or some shit, and it's Caleb Williams is tied to that. Like you're going to see more of that at the top of the sport, and that's kind of the direction we're going in. So it has shifted the playing field some, because the schools that are ahead of the curve and we're ready for it and have states that are allowing them to go out and do things that that they want to do, as opposed to states that are kind of behind the times or restricting it, that is shifting where you have to watch. Like if I see Chris Beard recruiting a kid, I know he's got the financial support from his NIL at Ole Miss, and he was paying players long before this. So of course now, like Will Wade was just 2 years behind the times. If Will Wade was at LSU now,
ahead of the times.
Well, yeah, behind in terms of if this had all gone through 2 years earlier, what Will Wade was doing at LSU was perfectly fine.
Yeah, kind of, because you're not necessarily allowed to be involved in the money as a coach.
Sure, Aaron.
That's
No
the
coaches
rules.
are involved in the money.
That's the rules.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're looking at those NCAA violations.
Sure. And they're toothless because the school just takes you to court, and the court goes, they can do whatever they want.
We hate you, NCAA.
Right.
We hate you.
Again,
I don't know.
The law hates the NCAA so much that the Supreme Court, that hates each other, voted 9-0 against the NCAA on the O'Bannon case. 9-0. It's like the only thing they've ever. Has there been another 9-0 in the Supreme Court in the past 10 years outside of the O'Bannon case?
Probably not.
I'm sure there have people. Don't inundate me with examples, but I'm exaggerating for a point.
I'm curious as to when kids are going to get hip to the fact that you can go to states where taxes aren't taken out.
Well, where state taxes aren't taken out.
That's the way to do it.
Like Texas and Florida, there's no state tax, right?
I know.
I was just using and that's where there's some power
And there's others.
house, but
Of course.
there's
Yeah,
use
I
them
mean,
as an example because there's some powerhouses in college sports in Texas and in Florida. Like,
there
Now, do you
most
guys?
certainly are.
This is a stretch, but do you guys think college football and basketball has the ability to change state legislation?
They already have.
oh, it's happening.
Like certain states getting rid of state taxes in general? Do you think they're willing to
That
give
would
them?
be
I think if the people in power,
if the right
or-
boosters are in place in
Yeah.
power, then yeah.
if they say, "Look, we're falling behind," if
Especially in
people
the SEC.
Alabama, if
Mhm.
if Nick Saban is like, "We're falling behind," because guess what states are now prominent in the SEC? Texas and Florida. We're falling behind because there's no taxes in Texas and Florida.
Senator Tuberville, I need a favor.
Yeah.
That's only if Auburn called, not Alabama. I'm not going to make any political jokes. This is why SMU got good so fast. They had a lot of practice. Yeah, but I would say this. There are schools that cheated their ass off for years that weren't ready for NIL, that are now scrambling to catch up because
Kentucky.
they weren't ready for it to be legal. They were like, oh, well, shit. We can't just do what we used to do. Like, no, you got a couple hoops you got to jump through before it's good. And they're like, oh, damn.
What do I do with all this cash? I've been taking out $500 a day for years. What do I do with all this cash?
I made this joke to Dave yesterday or the day before. I think it was Dave, off air, that the profession that is the most screwed in all of this. Where are the bagmen now? Like the bagmen are screwed. Those guys were essential.
They actually have to assistant coach now.
Right. Like now they're on staff.
Anyway.
If you don't know, the bagman was essentially the money launderer for college programs to
also
give
the fall
recruits
guy.
money. When necessary, yeah. If they were a bad bagman, yes. The good bagmen you never
knew.
heard. These are not the bagmen you're looking for.
All right.
Have fun. You like that, Garrett? Like we'll touch on some other stuff on Thursday
I like that.
nights?
It's beautiful. I love it. Added a little varieties and spice of life.
I don't know that we'll have this much meat on the bone. This was just a week. Our first time now that we've gone to a formatted show during the season where there was a bunch of other stuff that was like, oh, we need to get to this.
Hopefully our boy Ross Dellinger keeps pumping them out.
You should send him like a bouquet of flowers.
A thank you email.
Yeah, a thank you email. Like, look, man, we do a show every night on YouTube, and we wouldn't exist without you. All right, let's get out of here. Garrett, thank you as always, my friend.
Thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
We'll see you in a couple weeks, and hopefully it's a much better tone than what we had for part of tonight. Other than that, I think we had a good time.
Stay on after the stream ends, though, Garrett.
Yeah, I will this time. I got you.
Okay.
I have something to tell both of you. We'll see you next time. That's the Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken, right here on BearcatJournal.com.
See ya.